其实我细汉时阵感觉讲会讲台语无水准啊，大家听台语想讲哦，你是装卡来的，还是讲你是有血的，还是讲安怎甲电视共款，特别电视讲台说一定是歹人，或者是戆人，或者是无读册。
I think this is the result of became this Mandarin-only policy implemented through television, compulsory education, and stigmatization of Taiwanese, which is a highly effective language suppression campaign. Therefore, younger generations raised in a Mandarin-only environment are disconnected from this language. As a result, most of them are indifferent to Taiwanese endangerment.
Hello and welcome to Connected. I'm Tomasz Koper, sitting in for Divya Gopalan. What language do they speak in Korea? Korean, of course. And in Japan? Japanese. So what do we speak in Taiwan? If you guess Taiwanese, well, that's complicated. Taigi, as many call it here, was once the majority language of Taiwan, but its use was squeezed and limited by decades of deliberate government policy. It's now coming back as an important part of the modern Taiwanese identity. To help us understand the struggles and the future of Taigi, which for simplicity's sake we'll refer to as Taiwanese for the rest of the show, we welcome our guest, Professor Lao Sêng-hiân from the Department of Taiwan Culture, Languages and Literature at National Taiwan Normal University. Welcome to the show. Let me start with this. Can you tell us what Taiwanese is exactly? Where does it fit in the large sort of scheme of languages in the region, and how did it come to Taiwan?
Taiwanese, when used as a proper name, does not refer to like Taiwanese languages or languages in Taiwan. Linguistically, Taiwanese is a variety of Southern Min, and there are different varieties in Southern Min. In addition to Taiwanese, our audience may hear of Hokkien, spoken in Singapore, Malaysia, or Amoy, spoken in Xiamen, China, and Quanzhou and Zhangzhou spoken in Fujian, China. Taiwanese has its origin in both Quanzhou and Zhangzhou in Fujian, China. Over centuries, immigrants from Quanzhou and Zhangzhou became Taiwan's main population, making their native languages the island's lingua franca. This parallels English origins in present-day Germany, brought by Anglo-Saxon people. It became England's native lingua franca.
Well, besides the names that you mentioned, which is Minnan or Southern Min and Taiwanese Hokkien, there's also Hokkien. What's the best way to refer to this language, to Taigi, in English? Should we use Taigi? Should we use Taiwanese? Should we use a different word?
Linguistically, we can call it like Taiwan Southern Min or Taiwan Minnan, no problem. But just like no one will intentionally code English Anglo-Saxon, right? Or like a British, Germanic language. No, we don't do that, even on a linguistic paper. So personally, I think it's okay. We can simply call this language Taiwanese. Just we call any other language in the world by the place name.
Well, just to give our audience a little bit of extra background, I want us to take a look at this. How did Taiwanese go from being the majority language to now being second to Mandarin? Our contributor Ariel shows us how the language was suppressed and why younger generations are fighting to keep it alive.
如果讲台湾话，一样要罚站，大家都来给他讲国语啦，完毕。
In the movie Naughty Boys and Soldiers, students are shown being punished for speaking Taiwanese.
从现在起，谁要是讲台湾话的人，就要挂一个牌子当鬼。
Taiwanese, also known as Taigi, was once widely spoken, but was pushed to the margin as Mandarin became the dominant language in Taiwan.
阿公阿嬷基本上干来晓讲台语，爸爸妈妈因是自细汉讲台语。 结果因做爸母了后，伊就会想讲哦，这个囡仔华语若是讲袂好，学袂好，安尼无法度读较好的学校，无法度找到较好的工课，所以讲第一条工教阮讲华语。
After decades of marginalization and stigma, Taiwanese speakers in Taiwan and across the world are now finding creative ways to bring the language back to life. In the heart of Tokyo, the lively Mickey House Cafe buzzes with conversations in many languages. Taking up a corner of the cafe, Avery Wu hosts a table for Taiwanese speakers. Avery launched the Taiwanese table in spring 2024. After living in Japan for 10 years, he's now on a mission to keep the language alive. But even though he's fluent and fully dedicated today, Avery wasn't always this proud of Taiwanese.
其实我细汉时阵感觉讲，会讲台语无水准啊，大家听了台语想讲哦，你是真卡来的，还是讲你是有会的，还是讲安怎甲电视共款，特别电视讲台说一定是歹人，无就是戆人，无就是无读册。
This was a result from decades of the government's Speak Mandarin movement starting from the 1950s, aimed at unifying Taiwan under one language and wiping out the remnants of Japanese colonial influence. Mandarin became the only language allowed in schools and public spaces.
我的细汉就是囡仔人啊，你囡仔人学白想着，我想讲，我爸爸妈妈是不是戆？因为我发现讲因一寡。华语词会讲唔对，不过我是较大汉有一天我想一件代志，就是讲华语对我家己的父母来讲，本来就是第二语言，而且是应该讲是因去国校开始读册了后，去别人逼因去学的一个外国语。所以讲因讲无好，本来就是运动啊。我想这个呢，我其实做悲伤的就是讲，为什么伊嘛无讲离开家己的家乡？为什么乡乡就是家己的母语无法度讲？而且因个决定讲要用唔是家己母语的另外一个语言来教育家己的囡仔。
In Taiwan, 66% of the population use Mandarin as their primary language. Only 32% use Taiwanese. And fewer people speak Taiwanese as their main language as you go down the age groups, showing a generational decline. Since Taiwan became a democratic nation, the government has taken steps to revive the Taiwanese language. In 2001, Taiwanese was introduced into schools, and by 2019, new policies further strengthened its role in education and public life. For many, this has led to a deeper recognition of Taiwanese as a connection to their heritage.
我是希望台语阁可以活过来，我无想要放弃家己讲母语、写母语这个权利。
For the full version of that feature, visit our YouTube channel or the TaiwanPlus website. So, it doesn't seem like a lot of young people are speaking Taiwanese on a regular basis, but I know that this isn't the case everywhere in Taiwan, and things look differently outside of Taipei, which most people might be familiar with. So can you tell us how Taiwanese is distributed across the country?
Well, Taiwanese was the main language used by like 70% of people in Taiwan. But just as the video we just saw, now most people have switched their primary language to Mandarin. Today, the young generations, I mean, most of young people, they can't even like speak Taiwanese fluently. Most of them probably have no problem to understand when people speak Taiwanese to them, but usually they cannot reply like fluently. A March survey revealed that while 68.5% of Taiwanese people acknowledge the crisis, and 93.9% agree that speaking Taiwanese with their children helps preservation, but 77.8% of fathers and 87.5% of mothers of 3-year-olds primarily use Mandarin when talking to their children. Even we can still like people speaking Taiwanese around, but if we pay attention, the speakers of Taiwanese nowadays are mostly in their like 60s or 70s, but there are only few like young people who use this language in their daily life. And I think this poses the biggest issue when we want to keep this language alive, because the language future lies in the young generation, but not the elders.
Well, we saw Avery in the video talk about how his own parents used Mandarin, bringing him up to give him a leg up. And Mandarin is the main language of commerce, of technology, of science, of education in Taiwan. So there are efforts to revitalize, to kind of bring Taigi back. But what are realistically the limits of that?
Yeah, in fact, if we look at to the history and if we ask the elders, actually Taiwanese was the language used in commerce and in education. If we ask those people who were young when Taiwan is under the Japanese colonial ruling, they still remember at school some courses were taught in Taiwanese. And even after World War II, when the Speak Mandarin movement has not been executed so seriously, even courses like in mathematics or like geography were taught in Taiwanese. So it's not about the limit of this language to be used in different aspects. Basically, the main problem is the ideology or the mindset of people in Taiwan. I think this is the result of the Cantonese Mandarin-only policy implemented through television compulsory education and stigmatization of Taiwanese, which is a highly effective language suppression campaign. And therefore, younger generations raised in a Mandarin-only environment are disconnected from this language. As a result, most of them are indifferent to Taiwanese endangerment. So if we want to turn the tide, the most important thing would be to change how people think about this language. And if people attach more importance to this language, then this language will have a brighter future.
Well, one other thing that Avery mentioned in the video there was that he wants to keep speaking and writing Taiwanese. Can you tell us a little bit about the efforts to standardize Taigi? Because I know that it went through different stages of developing a writing script.
Written Taiwanese dates back to at least the Qing Dynasty, with Taiwan's first newspaper, Taiwan in English, Taiwan Church News, published in Taiwanese romanization from 1885 until its 1968 prohibition by the KMT. Other publications in Taiwanese romanization and character-based writing existed. In addition to the works by the intellectuals, we also have Guate, the Gua book, a form of folklore literature written in characters. And these things are very popular. At that time, there was no standardization, so the characters used by intellectuals and the ones used in Guate are very different. The standardization only happened recently. So the government nowadays they have provided an online dictionary. They have made the orthography for Taiwanese, and they also hold writing competitions in Taiwanese periodically, and even like a language proficiency tests, which will be held now twice a year. So if people want to learn to write in Taiwanese, there are resources. And now we even see like publications in the orthography promulgated by the government. So but people in Taiwan, most of them don't know the writing history of Taiwanese because this is not a language they were educated at school. And at school, teachers basically don't talk a lot about Taiwanese has been written for quite a long time. There are different publications, including like medical textbooks, novels, newspapers. So people have a kind of a misunderstanding that, well, Taiwanese is a language that can be written. Taiwanese is only like colloquial.
We'll get to the role of government in all of this in just a second, but before, let me ask you this. It feels that it's not a coincidence that Taiwanese started coming back alongside the process of democratization and the forming of a modern Taiwanese identity. What do you think is the relationship between Taigi and those processes?
In the past, Taiwanese was the icon of the democratization movement in Taiwan. So the elders still remember they attended the democratization anti-KMT speech in Taiwanese. At that time, people spoke Taiwanese as a way to go against the authoritarian government because the government forced people to speak Mandarin and Mandarin only. So Taiwanese has a very deep connection with the democratization of Taiwan and the Taiwanese identity.
Well, as we've said, there are ongoing efforts to revitalize Taiwanese, and many of them rely on the advocacy from within the government. Ngalim Tiunn is one such legislator who told us why she is pushing to improve the language environment for Taiwanese.
其實我有看到，就是在40歲以下，講台語的人是雪崩式下跌啦。所以你就會知影講，這個教育因為迄當時的一寡政策，實在是予愈來愈濟人，家己像阮這代人，家己曉講台語嘛，無可能會曉教家己的囡仔講台語嘛。所以就變做講，對我來講，也有足濟關心台語的人，關心語言、母語文化的人，我會煩惱這個語言原本的母語的語言會無去安尼。我感覺即擺文化部這2年文化部有開始足認真在做一寡活動，親像我入去立法院了後，嘛有要求你愛做台語的家庭的計劃，你嘛愛開始咧思考有這個台語的基地，因為親像新住民。你拢有一寡基地，會使互新住民伫遐抬槓啊，傳承一寡恁家己的文化。毋過台語這個代志嘛是愛來重視安尼，所以文化部嘛是有在做這個政策的一個研擬。
我真正無錯。
阮之前嘛有要求，你一定要做足濟這款影集戲劇的節目，因為這時就互大家有這個意識，會使來講台語。自媒體的部分嘛，是因為即馬足濟少年人攏在看這個自媒體嘛，所以我是感覺講政府嘛應該要有一寡補助在自媒體的部分。會使來，互足濟少年人會使接觸到這個台語的語言、本土的語言安尼。
So, Sêng-hiân, what do you think of the government's efforts, some of which we've heard about in this soundbite just now, to revitalize Taiwanese? Is the government doing enough?
In my opinion, now the government should focus more on bring Taiwanese back to the younger generation. That is the most important thing for now, because the government they standardize the writing, and they are also like an hour per week Taiwanese course at school. But this basically don't change how young people use and think about Taiwanese. What we need is to have Taiwanese as at least one of the medium of instruction at school. Why? Because now our young kids, our teenagers, they don't have the Taiwanese speaking environment at home anymore. But they spend so much time at school. And so if at school they have the environment to speak and to hear, to listen to this language, then this language will have a higher chance to become part of their linguistic kit. So the government should try to build like schools which were taught in Taiwanese. I mean, a medium of instruction in Taiwanese. So so the young people will have a better chance, to become fluent in this language. I think this is the most important.
It does seem like a very ambitious project. What do you think needs to happen to make that a realistic idea? I mean, the government should set up special schools, separate schools, or require schools to have a certain percentage of classes taught in Taigi? What do you think?
Most of Taiwanese people, they are economy animals. So we need some incentives. It doesn't have to be like the whole school. We can start from like several classes at school, and then we can expand it to the whole school. So the government should try to encourage the management, the principal, the president, and teachers to do so. For example, to pay them more. If you teach this course, for example, biology, geography, mathematics, in Taiwanese, you got higher pay, like hourly, or you got more other kind of incentive. And for parents, like our government should let our parents know that if you let your children to study in a class or at a school which use Taiwanese as the medium of instruction, then probably all the tuition will be waived and all the textbook will be free. And when you apply for like colleges or universities, you will have an advantage that provided by the government.
Before we go today, I want to take a step away from the government because despite the central role the government plays in the efforts to revitalize Taiwanese through policies, a lot of the work still falls to individuals and non-governmental organizations. We spoke to Sêng-hiân, the chairperson of the Taigi-lō Association, about the roadblocks Taiwanese currently faces.
本是台湾Taigi-lō协会，这个协会是一定对囡仔讲台语的家长组成的。开始阮就是对囡仔讲台语嘛，了后发现讲环境最重要，但是咧厝里的环境，你离开厝了后，嘛需要有迄个支持团体，互即个家长甲囡仔的路再行较长。我家己是咧。做人老母了，才开始讲台语。我有三个囡仔啦，大汉的读书时阵，我嘛讲甲伊讲华语，因为迄阵都讲知影讲你爱甲囡仔一直讲话啊，语言刺激最重要。毋过迄阵嘛开始注意到讲有一寡家长因坚持邀工对囡仔讲台语，我才开始去思考讲，这代志该先怪怪，因为我台语应该是我的母语，但是已经转去啊。而且咧，我的囡仔伊的阿公阿嬷，就是我的爸母啊大家官因为拢会讲台语，但是拢无人对囡仔讲。我就发现讲，安尼唔对哦，安尼因以后是袂晓讲台语的，所以我就变做决定，我需要对因讲。我若是无对因讲，台语就会断伫我即代，我就变做阮到最后就会晓讲台语。亲像我对囡仔足细汉2-3个月都读绘本互伊听啊，结果伫我决定要对囡仔传台语的迄天，我甲绘本拍开，就甲合起来，因为我会袂晓讲。但是我嘛随开始学台文，即摆真侪就是台语人的愿望，就是台语正常化。安尼讲就代表即摆是无正常，是安尼无正常。母语原本是一个足自然的，是绝对囡仔讲的物件。即摆全大家会自动认为囡仔袂晓，还是讲甲囡仔讲台语介讲的，这是伫咧外口是一就是足普遍的情形。像我带囡仔去早顿店食饭，边仔的小姐听的跟我讲，你讲台语，你儿子听得懂。其实你敢有想过讲，是安那你讲国语伊听有，你讲华语伊听有，你自细汉讲伊就听有啊。若算讲今仔日伊看到一个妈妈对囡仔讲日本话，伊会想讲日本来的；一个妈妈讲英语，就讲可能美国回来的。是安那一个妈妈对囡仔讲台语，因大家的反应是，你讲台语他听得懂。这就是台湾足无正常的啊！咧学校内底，即摆虽然无禁止你讲哦，但是伊毋免禁止啊，因为大家袂晓讲。做咱家己的主人。这几年台语活动愈来愈济啊！我感觉阮嘛发现一个问题，就是台语伫咧即寡文化上，伊是一个表演的语。你伫咧后台啦，还是用接台的时阵工作人员啊，等等，伊也是无管是讲台语。所以，对阮来讲，台语毋是一个表演，还是讲互你去比赛，是一个语言，迄就是阮生活的语言，这是一个民族的语言。
Well, Sêng-hiân, there are a lot of interesting threads there. Again, a lot about how people transfer that language to the next generation, hopes for the future. So before we finish today, I want to ask you, what are your hopes for the future of Taiwanese?
Well, my hope for Taiwanese, of course, I hope it will be spoken by a future generation, like forever, instead of disappearing in the future. So I'd like to provide a different perspective for our government and for our parents and teachers that Taiwanese is more than a language of like identity or culture. Actually, Taiwanese could be something very important from like a utilitarianist perspective. As a linguist, there are a lot of linguistic studies that shows us people who speak more than one language in their daily life. They are better in their ability of management and also in conflict solving. Okay, so young kids who speak more than Mandarin, who are also fluent in Taiwanese, are supposed to develop better than the children who speak only Mandarin. Also, studies also show us that for the old generations, if they speak more than one language in their daily life and they are fluent in more than one language, the age they get dementia and Alzheimer will be postponed to 3.5 to 5 years at least. So if you ask me what I want to see in the future about this language, I hope this language could be the asset of Taiwanese, and in both like in soft power, it also can become the culture, the identity icon, but also the one which nourish our brain and to be beneficial in our education and also the health of our older generation in future.
Nourishing the body and the spirit, I can't think of a better sentiment to end the show on. Thank you very much, Professor Lau Sêng-hiân from the Department of Taiwan Culture, Languages and Literature at National Taiwan Normal University, for sharing your perspectives. And for our viewers everywhere, it's been good to have your company. If you've enjoyed today's episode or have anything you would like to add to the dialogue, join the conversation on our social media. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay connected.